Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Good.
With Nikola, what excites you about what he brings, especially with his passing and ability to space the floor?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, that was a move done in large part to balance out our positional needs. And it's a hard decision when you have to move a person like Ant, who's been so good, such a great teammate. Thought we had a little bit more depth and opportunity at the guard to cover that. And if we were able to get a big that had a similar impact from the standpoint of, I guess filling different statistical needs, and gave us a little bit more insurance in case of, any big depth issues. Felt like that was the right thing to do. And Nikola's a good player. He's been a good player for a long time. Obviously, the shooting and scoring gets a lot of attention. The passing, as you mentioned, is a big factor for us, and a bit something that we really like in bigs. So just gives us probably another look. And I think our two guys that have played the majority of the minutes at that position have been outstanding. And so we're excited to have all three of them and see how it all fits together.
And getting under the first apron and the luxury tax line creates a lot of flexibility. How much of a factor will the chance to reset the repeater tax shape how you build next season's team?
Yeah, I think what we did, like the directive at this deadline, obviously this summer we had to get under the second apron. That was every basketball reason in the world for that, and was the right thing to do. The directive at this trade deadline was, let's see if we can, again, find some size that we could give ourselves, a little bit more depth there, and make sure that we are more prepared for some of the physicality that's coming down the road if we're able to ultimately be in the playoffs and however long you're in the playoffs, right? You have to have that. There's just a physical toll that can be taken on a team. And so, but the directive was always just see what we can do with the team. After the Vooch trade, then, we saw that as an opportunity. But, next year, if there's something that we look at and we say, we gotta take advantage of it right now, then we're going to try to take advantage of it. Bill's been really clear with that. I think we saw, again, the tax for me was just there was an opportunity with 2 days left before the trade deadline that we didn't necessarily think would be there.
Just clarifying, you mentioned over the summer that there was obviously no tax goal from Bill specifically. Was the opportunity that you guys saw something that Bill talked to you guys about and said, okay, since this arose, let's go for it? Or was that the front office and you guys?
I think everybody talked about it, but it wasn't. Again, it wasn't a directive. I think Bill, and I would guess, I don't really talk to many people in his ownership group. Obviously, Wick is here a lot. I think we're all excited with how the team's playing and how they've come together and how well each guy has taken a step and how the coaches have coached them and how we feel like, Joe and the staff have created a system where when we have guys out, there's a lot of ability to replace those guys on a given night, and there's a lot of depth. And so we were, again, the directive was more, how can we best position ourselves and win now and win later? And so that's kind of what we tried to do.
And then I know you mentioned size being a priority. You guys obviously converted Amari Williams' deal from a 2A to a standard deal. Was that part of that, adding size to the roster? What have you seen from Amari that led you to sort of convert his contract?
Yeah, I think Amari's got a real chance to be a player. I think, in a lot of ways, he's got, he's got a unique basketball journey, maybe compared to some of our other guys, both here and internationally. And so you see Amari do a lot of things each month that maybe you didn't see as much of the month before. And so, I think, we're excited about the progress he's made. it's a bet on the person and the work ethic he has, and it does, ultimately fill a need. You could see where you don't, you're probably never going to play all four of those guys in a given game, but I think you see it a lot of times. We would play probably three of them, and sometimes you don't have three available. And so you just have to have enough depth there at that spot. And it's a chance with a young guy to see, what he can ultimately become if we keep investing in him.
Brad, you guys have a couple open roster spots now. I know you guys don't necessarily have to fill those right away here, but ultimately when you do fill them, what will you be looking for in those spots?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We're first of all, we've got three good two ways, that we feel really good about, and that gives us a lot of flexibility. I think here, Tanjay's addition. Tanjay's a good player. He's an older guy coming out of college that knows how to play and score. I think Shulga's had a really good year, and we all think Ron is one of the best players in the G League all season, and was just kind of, whatever his opportunity was going to come, he was going to take advantage of it. So I don't think any of us are surprised that Wednesday night's game, he's a stud, and he's a really good player, and he's been great for us now for the better part of 2 years, somewhere within our system. With that said, I think the biggest thing is seeing how this all looks. We'll ultimately fill the roster spot with at least one more ball handler, and then see how the rest of the needs play themselves out.
Brad, how did Jayson's potential return, if at all, impact the decisions yesterday in terms of maybe, obviously losing Anthony's scoring? You're like, Jayson's pretty good at scoring. And what can you tell us about where he's at and kind of his progress in general?
I would say it had very little impact on that singular decision, just because at the end of the day, if you kind of look at who you have to go through, the paths you might have to take, you just can't get worn down physically. And we were going to be much smaller, and now we at least have big options. Obviously, any team with Jayson Tatum is going to be better. So if that happens, that happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But we just thought that redistributing our positional needs was probably the most important thing. You hope that doesn't necessarily cost you a person of Anthony's caliber, both as a person and a player. But obviously to get a guy that's as accomplished as Vooch, you have to give something.
And what can you say about where Jayson is at right now? Obviously,
we're
in February. What kind of things is he doing? Is he, you've talked about the strength progressions.
He's hit a lot of the thresholds. He's doing more and more. And we'll continue to do more and more. He's still got a ways to go.
Brad, 3 players were traded yesterday, obviously, and for a couple of days before that. What was the communication prior to those trades with those guys? I know some of them were on the road. Did they kind of know this was a possibility? You mentioned it was kind of more opportunistic than pre-planned.
Yeah, by the time all those were done, their agents were all aware that was a real possibility. And, sometimes that's an individual conversation depending on who it is, and sometimes it's an agent conversation. But the bottom line is you can't always do this in this world, so I don't want to say, it's a thing you always should expect or can do. But if we know that there's likely to be a move, we try to at least communicate it in advance, or at least there's an attempt to be a move, right? Those are hard phone calls. I think Chris still has a lot to give, and he didn't get his opportunity here. And in large part just because a lot of our younger guys really took a jump maybe before we thought they might. And then, obviously Josh we were, he did a lot of good things for us early, kind of fell out of the rotation late, but I think he also could be a really good player. But again, whenever Jayson comes back, whether this year or next year, we're starting to have almost probably too many guys at that one spot and not enough minutes. So it's a great opportunity now for him to go play at a place that wanted him, and I'm guessing plans on playing him. And then X, X was an amazing person, an amazing teammate, also not in our rotation. So an opportunity to maybe go play a little bit more in a very familiar spot with very familiar people, which I was excited about for him. Can't say enough about those guys, but we try to give them a heads up. But they're, obviously we were with X the longest, and X is, really rooted here and tied deeply to everybody. But all three of those guys gave what they had for us, and we're greatly appreciative of it. And we're super gracious when I talk to them.
Brad, Jayson was on a podcast a couple weeks ago talking about the uncertainty he feels over how you fit into a situation like this midseason if you do come back, a team that's been successful. What was your reaction to those comments, and how do you view, if he does come back this season, how you do fit into a team like this on the fly?
I didn't. I mean, I saw some clips. I didn't listen to it, so I just listened to what he tells me. And so our conversations, I always would keep between ourselves. But I would say generally, anytime you go through a long, hard rehab, an extended rehab for anything at any level of athletics, there's going to be all kinds of things that you're thinking about as you're progressing through it. And so that is totally normal. I think we've talked to every single player that's ever had a long rehab about that. And, I think those are just things that go through everybody's minds. And listen, I might have told you this all a couple months ago. The talk with Jayson about when, at the start of the year about, when is best for Jayson Tatum to come back. Best for Jayson Tatum to come back when he's 110% healthy. He's fully cleared by everybody that matters in that decision. And he's got great peace of mind and ready to do it. That's it. That's the objective, and that's what we're going to stick with.
Is there a deadline per se, a point in the year where you do say, all right, if we don't feel 100% by this point, it might be next year?
When we feel 100%, it'll be it'll be a group getting together and talking. But we're not like, I'm not trying to. I think our medical people are really good. I think his doctors are really good, so we're going to listen to them. He's listening to them. I think Nick and him have had an amazing work ethic throughout this whole recovery. And when it's right, then we'll all sit down and talk about it. But there's still no force from us. There's no pressure from us. But there's also not going to be any of us saying, well, why don't you just take another week? It's going to be, when he's ready, he's ready.
Brad, presumably the process of balancing the roster began when you acquired Anthony, because the balance was what it was back then, and so now you've
mean
made
the balance of the.
So you acquire Anthony Simons, you still have the bigs that you had.
Yeah.
Going to the season, the bigs. So if the move is to rebalance, then you are off balance basically since you acquired Anthony. Was the process of acquiring a big starting from July? Why did it take until a deadline? What was the process? How did you get from there to here?
That's a great question. I mean, we tried to get, as you know, a couple of guys that we didn't get back last year, and rightfully so. They got good deals elsewhere and got, good for them, and obviously we loved having them here. But I thought we got fortunate with Garza, and he's been great. And then, we had Amari that we knew was going to be good over time, but he's got a lot of work to do. And we just thought that, we would kind of piece it together from there. We were very confident in X or Chris if we ended up going in that direction. But just we weren't able to get another guy with that kind of size. When Vooch walks into the room, it looks different. He's big and long and strong and can be standing next to anybody in this league and not look small, right? Maybe there is a guy, but not very many guys. So generally, that would probably be what I would say. Those guys aren't just around all the time to just add to your team in late July or August, I guess is the way I would say it.
And the process of making trades now, we've talked about second apron and this new landscape that you're in. How has that changed? How has that affected the move to get Vucevic? Is the value of the first round picks, has that changed? How does that process kind of evolved?
Yeah, I mean, I think people obviously. I think that it's harder. It didn't stop all the activity, obviously, but it is really challenging. The next time we make a trade is the first time we can take back more money in the trade than any time in the last couple years, which hasn't happened because of where we've been with regard to the aprons. It always had to be we had to take back less unless we had an exception available to use, which we couldn't ever do when we were in the second apron planet. So, like, there is a lot more flexibility. There are more tools at your availability where we are going into this summer. But, there's a lot of teams that are dealing with a lot of different where they are, right? And you see, like, anybody up and around the second apron, they just can't take back more money, and then it becomes you almost have to include 3 teams. And then once you include 3 teams, it gets even more complicated. Once you include 4 teams, it's near impossible. So, but anyways, we feel fortunate to have been able to do what we've done. But this is, like I said, we're trying to be as good as we can be. We're trying to win right now, and we're also trying to position ourselves to continue to be good for a long, long time. And this gives us, hopefully, this is a step in that direction.
You just said to us, any team with Jayson Tatum is going to be better. Did you feel
Facts.
the need? Right. Did you feel the need to say that to him because he expressed doubt about whether him coming back would upset things? And
I guess I didn't really, again, listen to all the. I think in all of our conversations, he's confident he can make teams better too. Okay. So I think what I would say is, again, I think it's more natural just from when you're in that rehab process, you're thinking about, there's a lot that goes through your mind. You're looking at old footage of yourself versus new footage of yourself. You're trying to figure out, like, where you are in that kind of whole path. And then you get back out on the court, and each day it gets a little bit more normal, and you start to feel a little bit more maybe like yourself, I guess. And I think that's just normal. And so, but that's a good question. If he needs it, I'll tell him every day, because every team, all 30 of us would be way, way, way better with him on your team.
Brad, you guys are 15 games over 500. It's not just you guys aren't just a play-in team at this point. You guys are the second seed. What's the kind of the balance of looking into this season? And I'm sure you've looked at Mike and all the other guys and said, okay, we're a little better than maybe we thought we would be, and taking advantage of this season, but also preparing for next season, like not sacrificing anything next season, first round picks, any assets, but also not punting this season, not saying
all that.
Yes. What's the balance?
What I would say is that we would explore and we're willing to use those things if need be. They just weren't available to us in a way that would materially improve us. We think we're materially improved with the move we made, even though we lost a really good player. And I think that's one of the things is we can go down. We looked at everything we could to do the best we could to take advantage of this year, right? And this was a move that hopefully, gives us, again, a little bit more depth at the position, and we'll see how it all plans out with a really good player. And, at the same time, the result is we do have increased flexibility moving forward. But we looked at everything like you always would, and this is just really, until I got in this seat, I probably didn't realize how challenging it is to actually do a deal. And to do a deal when you're talking about guys that, are seriously going to take you to a different place than where you are, it's really hard to find those guys, right, that are available. And the other thing I'd say is I think we're all encouraged, not surprised, but encouraged by some of our youth and where they've come. And a large part of that has been because of opportunity. And Joe has done an amazing job of throwing them all out there and sometimes pulling them fast, but throwing them all out there and letting them, gain great experience and great opportunity. And you've seen kind of this jump on a couple of them. And then, if you take that away for the next 3 months, are you actually worse, right? Or can they take another jump? So I think that's part of it too. Like we're in kind of a unique position where, some of the things that we're hopeful for is that our young players continue to take the jump they're taking. We know our best players are studs. That's obvious. And Jalen's having a ridiculous year, and Derek White is having everybody's going to focus on his shooting, but every time he's on the court, we win by a lot. And then Peyton's having the year he's having. We've got really good guys that these guys are kind of accentuating. But I think that those are all the things you weigh when you really make a move. Are you really making your team better? And at what cost? And so we felt pretty good about, this was our move to help us be better, and hopefully we can be as good as we can be now. We still have some ability to add in the, free agent market, and then we'll figure it out after this year what that looks like. But I hope we go on a hell of a run, and I'm not going to put a ceiling on us just like I haven't from day one.
And then with the buyout market,
yeah,
most of the people that get excited about the buyout market are fans, and
Yeah.
because they see the names.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he can
Yeah.
come. And most of the time it doesn't work out. Buyout guys just, they're guys, right? But is this market, this particular market, can you get an impact player? Can you get a guy that can actually help you?
In fairness, I might argue they're still like the 450 best players in the world, so they're pretty damn good. I would say that what we will be looking for will not be somebody that we're going to ask to come in and be a part of the everyday rotation when we're fully healthy. But we also need people that can come in, accept that, and be ready to help us move this thing down the hill and forward. And so anybody that comes in here will know that, because that will be well communicated. And sometimes that actually eliminates maybe people with bigger reputations or whatever the case may be, but it brings in the right person for your team. And so that's what we'll look for. And I think, we'll evaluate in-house, as we always do. And when I say in-house, I mean 2As in Maine and G League and buyouts from the NBA. It's not about what somebody's done or what their reputation is. It's more about, do they want to be here, and do they want to add to us winning?